Today we're gonna figure out who the best WWE superstar of the year is. In fact, I'm gonna do you one better. I'm gonna give you the top 10 WWE superstars for all of 2023. Now, the people that made it onto this list are here because of how good their matches were, how good their storylines that they were involved were, the accomplishments that they completed throughout 2023, and really their overall hype factor. And yes, there's over 100 WWE superstars to pick from, so there's a good chance that your favorite didn't make it to this list. However, I think I've done a pretty solid, objective job of boiling it down to the best 10. Now, before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know you're gonna fall in love with this channel because we upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's jump into it. And number 10 is an individual that had a fantastic back half of 2023. In fact, I'd say that they had the best back half of 2023 of just about any WWE superstar on the roster. However, they started off the year very weak. They weren't really involved in many storylines. The ones that they were involved in weren't particularly great, and they were kept off of the majority of PLEs throughout the year, including the big one, WrestleMania. However, after SummerSlam, this individual really catapulted themselves. In fact, they won my breakout superstar of the year. We are speaking none other than LA Knight. Yeah. Look, an LA match isn't going to blow you away. He's not like the greatest in-ring technician. He's not some crazy high flyer, but he gets the job done. Where LA Knight shines is his character work, his ability to win people over, his charisma, his fantastic promo abilities, and the ability that he has to not just build himself up, but build up the people around him. He makes his feuds feel special because of the back of his character work. His feud with Bray Wyatt felt special, in my opinion, because of how good LA Knight was throughout that feud. His feud with Roman Reigns, hell, he had to carry it because Roman Reigns wasn't there half the time. So if I was just doing a list of the best character workers or the best mic workers in the WWE throughout the year, LA Knight would be significantly much higher on this list. However, he didn't get to accomplish too much because his rise to popularity really happened in the back half of the year. When we look at his accomplishments, they don't really go beyond just winning the Slim Jim Battle Royal and winning a couple of PLEs here or there against The Miz and in a tag team match against the Bloodline. And he did have a huge main event with Roman Reigns, but came up short there. But when we're talking about the most memorable, most hyped names of 2023, LA Knight is at the very tippity top of this list. So even though LA Knight doesn't have the most fantastic matches out there, even though he didn't accomplish a heck of a whole lot, if you really look at the accomplishments, like on paper accomplishments, doesn't matter because he was one of the most special, most sought after, most organically over superstars of the entire year. So LA Knight just cracks this list. I will say, I'm a little concerned that he's not going to be able to replicate the magic of late 2023 throughout 2024. Fingers crossed that the megastar can stay at the top of the pecking order, still be in the main event scene, because I feel like if you don't use him, I think it's going to be one of those situations where they end up just slowly burying him lower and lower and lower down the card as the months go by. I hope that doesn't end up being the case. But hey, this guy moves merch like crazy. WWE loves that. So my assumption is that they're going to keep him near the top throughout 2024. At number 9, we have one of the most consistent performers throughout the entire year and spent the majority of the first half of 2023 in one of the biggest storylines in WWE history, the Bloodline storyline. So we're going to be giving the 9th spot to Kevin Owens. When we look at accomplishments, we are talking about somebody that got to main event against Roman Reigns at Royal Rumble. We're talking about somebody that main evented WrestleMania. He won the undisputed tag titles from a team that had held the titles for a record amount of time. Kevin Owens really had a very special start to the year. And in my opinion, he was involved in the best match of the entire year, that being the undisputed tag team titles match between him and his partner Sami Zayn, going up against the Usos in the main event of WrestleMania 39. Now, his star power did begin to dwindle quite a bit throughout the latter half of the year. However, it doesn't change the fact that the first 9 months of Kevin Owens' career was some of the most that he's been featured prominently on the main event scene. So between the quality of his matches, the fact that he was involved in one of the greatest WWE storylines of all time before it really, took a horrible turn at SummerSlam, and the fact that he was just a consistent performer, even if he is in the United States Championship picture right now, doesn't change the fact that he had a fantastic 2023 and cracks the top 10 at number 9. At number 8, we have an individual that was given the ball one time and took that thing and ran with it and hasn't dropped it since. We are talking about Damian Priest. In the start of the year, Damian Priest was treated kind of like a main eventer, being treated like a serious threat in the Elimination Chamber, but that wouldn't really materialize into anything for him going into WrestleMania. But coming out of WrestleMania, he had a feud set up with him with Bad Bunny, a feud that ended up being career-making for Damian Priest. This could have been just a throwaway feud, but it's going down as one of the best feuds and one of the best matches of the year, and that was because of the hard work that Damian Priest put in to make Bad Bunny feel special in the ring. Because Bad Bunny brought the hype. He doesn't need any help with that, but he needed help to make the match hype in itself in the ring. And because of how well he delivered in that match at Backlash, he was given the Money in the Bank briefcase, winning the briefcase at the Money in the Bank ladder match in London in front of a raucous crowd. And then he was involved in the main event scene for a very long time, basically right through to Survivor Series. He was a prominent player in the main event scene, teasing cash-ins here or there, being the leader of Judgment Day, and also winning the undisputed tag titles from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Not only that, but he also became part of the only pair to ever win those undisputed tag titles, not once, but twice. Is he in a little bit of a stasis limbo mode because of that briefcase? A little bit. You know, the return of CM Punk really locks up Seth Rollins in terms of like what Seth Rollins can do with that championship, and we don't ever really see him being able to cash in on Roman Reigns, so that kind of leaves Mr. Senor Money in the Bank in a little bit of a limbo going into 2024. However, I'm not a fortune teller. I have my fingers crossed that hopefully they can figure out how to properly use Damian Priest in the main event scene with this Money in the Bank briefcase without derailing the great storyline that they have in place for Seth Rollins and CM Punk. But I'm getting ahead of myself talking about 2024. When it comes to 2023, Damian Priest was one of the breakout superstars of the year, consistent deliverer in the main event scene, and I think he delivered enough in the main event scene throughout 2023 to be a perennial figure in that scene for the next couple of years. At number 7, I have an individual that many of you were mad that I didn't put into the breakout superstar of the year category. However, I didn't put him in that category because to me, he was the breakout superstar of 2020. Can you really break out twice in your career? Maybe. You let me know in the comments. I'm talking about main event Jey Uso. When it comes to character work, the start of the year for Jey Uso was special. It's the best way I can put it. His body language, his facial expressions, his emotional promos right from the Royal Rumble all the way through to WrestleMania and even past WrestleMania into the Bloodline Civil War, into Tribal Combat, all of it was special. It was the best work of his entire career. In fact, I believe that it was that fantastic character work and delivery that convinced the WWE that he can absolutely be one of their top players in the main event scene. Hence, main event Jey Uso. I do think that without the Bloodline storyline, his mystique is kind of missing. I just don't think that going out to the ring and doing this I just don't think that it measures up to the fantastic stuff that he was doing in the first 8 months of the year. However, not only was his character work fantastic throughout the year, but also his matches. The two that to me stand out as not just the best matches of Jey Uso's year, but also some of the best matches of the year outright were the Night 1 main event of WrestleMania against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and of course, the Bloodline Civil War at Money in the Bank. So when I said at the start of this video that we're ranking people based on their matches, Jey Uso had fantastic matches. Based on their stories that they were involved in, Jey Uso was involved in some of the best storytelling that the WWE has ever done. And in terms of accomplishments, he became a main event player. Like, this was a fantastic career-making year for Jey Uso. Look, I like the fun-loving Jey Uso from time to time, but I don't know, man. I just don't feel it's as good as the stuff that he was delivering back at the start of the year. I got to get you. At number 6, we have one of the top breakout performers of the year, that being Mommy Rhea Ripley. When we look at accomplishments, it's tough to surpass Rhea Ripley's 2023. She won the Women's Royal Rumble. She had one of the best matches of the year at WrestleMania against Charlotte Flair, a match that many people believe should have been the main event of Night 1, and she became a perennial main event player, not just in the women's division, a women's division that she absolutely annihilated throughout the year, but also in traditional men's storylines. And usually when that happens, it's usually a character that's playing a valet. Think of somebody like Lana, for example, where she might be involved in a main event scene, but doesn't really get involved physically. Rhea Ripley, on the other hand, doesn't just get involved from a character point of view and storyline, but she gets involved physically as well. That's a very rare thing for a top performer in the women's division. Another accomplishment to add to her accolades is just how long this championship reign has been, a championship reign that will most likely cross the year mark. However, if your criticism of that championship reign is that she hasn't faced enough credible opponents, fair enough. But I don't necessarily think that that's Rhea Ripley's fault. I just think that that speaks to the lack of depth of the women's division on Monday Night Raw. But that also goes to show you the allure that she has, that she is an unbeatable unit. Because it doesn't matter who goes up against her, whether it's somebody small like Zelina Vega or a huge monster like Nia Jax or a powerful pound for pound individual that can go up right against Rhea Ripley like Raquel Rodriguez, they all feel inferior because mommy just feels that special. And she did not have this aura in 2022. This aura really came off the back of her fantastic start in 2023. In 2024, my only wish is that she defends this thing against more credible opponents. And I think that's a fair criticism to have of Rhea Ripley. Hey folks, I don't have a sponsor, but I would like to remind you that I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Over there, you're going to get even more wrestling content that you won't see here, like my Raw reviews, my SmackDown reviews, and you'll also get early content like the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier than everyone else. If you're already a patron, thank you so much for supporting me and what I do. It allows me to do this on a full-time basis because YouTube is really unpredictable and you don't know when you're going to be able to make a good living. So Patreon really helps with that. So again, thank you. Patreon.com/SantiZap. Back to the video. And number 5, dude, like I tried to keep him off this list, but I ultimately just couldn't because he's just too special of a performer. And even though he barely performed in 2023, I have to acknowledge the tribal chief Roman Reigns. Seriously though, it is kind of crazy that somebody in 2023 crossed the marker of 1,000 days of being the top champion in the WWE is not number 1. And he's not number 1 because he barely performed in 2023. Really what kept Roman Reigns on this list is just how special he feels whenever he actually comes to work. Look no further than Solo and Jimmy that just kind of feel like stooges whenever Roman Reigns isn't around. And many PLEs are called B-tier PLEs like Payback, Fastlane when Roman Reigns isn't around. I promise you, had Roman been on those shows, none of us would have been calling them B tiers. So clearly he's still the star attraction of the WWE. However, he's not really a star anymore. He's more of a unicorn, something that you rarely ever get to see. At the very least, we did have a lot of Roman Reigns at the start of the year in his storyline of the bloodline leading past WrestleMania into Money in the Bank and into SummerSlam. He was taking breaks periodically here or there between those major shows. However, it was after SummerSlam where his breaks just started to get ridiculous. Because after SummerSlam, we didn't get to see him for months into his build-up for his match against LA Knight, and then we didn't get to see him at Survivor Series, and we're probably not going to get to see him at Elimination Chamber. It's getting a little bit silly with his part-time nature. It's kind of wild that he became the thing that he sought out to destroy in Brock Lesnar, that being a part-time champion that rarely ever defends. How poetic. Look, when we look for accomplishments with Roman Reigns, he's got not just the best accomplishment of the year, but one of the biggest accomplishments in WWE history, that being the top world champion in the company for over 1,000 days, and it stretched even well beyond that at this point. This accomplishment has him in conversation with the greats to hold that championship, individuals that were basically myths and legends of the business. And to think of somebody in 2023 achieving those levels is kind of mind-boggling. Look, for as much as we complain about Roman Reigns not having enough matches throughout the year, at the very least when he does show up, they're usually pretty darn good. The match against Kevin Owens, not bad. The Elimination Chamber match against Sami Zayn, fantastic. The main event of WrestleMania, pretty darn good. The Bloodline Civil War, fantastic. The match of Night of Champions, fantastic. Great match with LA Knight. Like, this guy, whenever he shows up, like, it just feels like the Super Bowl. But damn it, Roman, show up to work, please. Heck, if you want somebody that shows up to work, look no further than one of the hardest workers in 2023, that being Sami Zayn. But in 2023, that lovability not only made Sami Zayn the hottest wrestler on the planet, but he made him like nuclear hot. He wasn't just involved in the Bloodline storyline, again, one of the greatest storylines in WWE history. He was the best part of that storyline. That is a crazy accomplishment. Imagine being told that you're the best part of one of the best things that WWE has ever produced. That is quite the feat. But 2023 also saw Sami Zayn become a perennial main eventer. Again, 2022, he was not that. He was more or less just a glorified jobber. And then come 2023, not only is he main eventing against Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber for the world title and having one of the best matches of the year, but then he would go on to main event WrestleMania. He would go on to main event shows like Night of Champions and Survivor Series. This was a career year for Sami Zayn. Not only was he one of the best WWE superstars, period, but he was one of the breakout superstars all at the same time. His character work in the early portions of the year were absolutely top notch, being able to be so funny that he can cause the Bloodline characters to break their serious stoic character to becoming one of the most lovable underdogs ever seen on WWE television, to becoming like one of the most intense mic workers that we've seen in a long time. Sami Zayn demonstrated that he's got a ridiculous range when it comes to his character work. So we're looking at an individual that had a fantastic year in terms of character work, had some amazing marquee matches throughout the year, and we're looking at somebody that became a forever main eventer in the main event scene. Sami Zayn had a year to remember. Number 3 is not one of my favorites, but I have to acknowledge when things need to be acknowledged, and Cody Rhodes had an absolutely phenomenal 2023 as well. It all started after a fantastic comeback at the Royal Rumble after a gruesome injury in 2022 that looked like it was going to keep him out for much longer than it actually did. He ended up winning the Royal Rumble. He went on to headline WrestleMania in one of the biggest feeling main events in a very long time. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns told a story where it felt like I hadn't seen a WrestleMania main event with more stakes than that. But not only would Cody Rhodes go on to win the Rumble, main event WrestleMania, but he would also go on to do something that very few people tend to do, which is outright win a feud against Brock Lesnar. It's a very rare thing to do unless your name is Roman Reigns. I didn't love the trilogy of matches between Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar, but heck, Brock Lesnar is one of the best workers on the planet, and even he acknowledged how good Cody was throughout that trilogy, that he raised his hand after their match at SummerSlam, something that was not staged, was not scripted, and wasn't planned. So when the Beast Incarnate is giving you props, you probably did something pretty good there. Cody Rhodes was kind of all over the place in the year, feuding for the world title, feuding with Brock Lesnar, with Nakamura, taking a side quest and feuding for the world titles, doing a Survivor Series War Games match. This man was everywhere and was also on like every single episode of Monday Night Raw. This man was a work machine throughout the entire year. I know we don't really talk about house shows, but Cody Rhodes is like the face of WWE house shows as well, which is a weird thing in 2023 to see the top babyface still appear in like every house show. So the man is here to work. He put in the work in 2023, and I really think that he delivered, even though he was kind of on a side quest for the most part after WrestleMania 39. Whether you like it or not, I do believe that he is one of the best character workers and mic workers in the WWE. He can generate empathy, sympathy, and hype for anything that he wants to build for. And he can do this while somehow still feeling like the everyday guy. It's a very, very unique storytelling device that Cody Rhodes has that he really put into effect throughout 2023. And number 2, if you thought that Cody Rhodes was a workhorse, let me introduce you to the real workhorse of the WWE, Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins reminded us how nice it is to have a champion that is there every episode, that is defending every PLE, and that is willing to take on all comers. In terms of accomplishments, far and away his biggest one was winning the inaugural World Heavyweight Championship, a championship that he would go on to consistently defend every single PLE after winning it. We're talking winning it at Night of Champions, defending at Money in the Bank, then at SummerSlam, even defending on episodes of Raw and NXT, Payback, Fastlane, even having matches at Saudi Arabia. He didn't defend at War Games, but he had a match as part of the War Games team. But what was cool as well is that Seth Rollins' title reign allowed for people that we wanted to see get cracks at the world title to get limelight and to have great matches with Seth Rollins. We're talking about the likes of AJ Styles, Finn Balor, Nakamura, Drew McIntyre. The list of the people that Seth Rollins had feuds with was just an all-timer. Slammer this year. This man has been putting in some work to make that World Heavyweight Championship no longer feel like that participation ribbon that many of us saw it as when it was first announced. Heck, he also had a fantastic feud with Logan Paul. Now, if at the start of the year, that might have sounded like a special thing, but now we know how good Logan Paul is. But Seth Rollins carried him into one of the best matches of all of WrestleMania. Like, they were just fantastic together. Now, in terms of character work, like, it's hit or miss with me. I don't love the sing my song, I'm a revolutionary, oh, I don't love it. But sometimes we get a glimpse of like the super serious, intense Seth Rollins that I love. We saw it with Nakamura. We saw it at moments with Finn Balor, with Drew McIntyre, and we sure as shit saw it with Logan Paul, where he told him that everyone hates him and nobody likes him and that he's just an outsider. And then, of course, we saw it against CM Punk as well. This man is still at the top of his game, not just physically, but as a mic worker as well. Now, at number one, we have an individual that consistently put on the best match after match after match after match. Granted, he didn't have that many great storylines, but that's because the storyline was beating him. So if beating you is the storyline, that's pretty damn impressive. We're talking about the ring general Gunther. In my opinion, Gunther had such a good 2023 that he changed the narrative of not if Gunther could win a world title, but when is he going to win a world title? And that was all off the back of fantastic match after match after match and delivering wonderful matches, not just on the PLE stage, but consistently on shows like Monday Night Raw. Heck, two bangers that I can think of right now that weren't even on PLEs that were fantastic matches that were in contention for match of the year on Monday Night Raw were Gunther versus The Miz and Gunther versus Chad Gable. Then, of course, you have the fantastic triple threat match at WrestleMania, his amazing performance in the Royal Rumble when he went all the way to the very end from number one only to be eliminated at the very end by Cody Rhodes, but also breaking the record for the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. A record that feels earned, unlike Roman Reigns' record, which sort of feels artificially inflated with how little he actually appears on TV. Meanwhile, Gunther is on TV just about every week, and then more often than not, a couple times a month, he's defending that strap. This was also the year where Gunther really took another step with his character work and with his promo deliveries, because before he was just sort of a Terminator, at least Terminator in the first movie, where he was just a quiet badass that didn't really do too much speaking. Ludwig Kaiser really did the majority of the speaking, but in 2023, he really elevated himself as a great mic worker. He still has work to do in that regard, so just imagine what he can be in another year or two of being comfortable in front of large audiences like this. Gunther may not just have been the best WWE superstar of the year, he might have just been the best professional wrestler on the planet. And like, he's like up there with like Will Ospreay for me. And all of that, and I still think he's untapped potential. I think he could be at the very top of this list again in 2024. Anyways, folks, that's my list. Thank you very much for sticking with me throughout 2023. Hopefully you stick with me throughout 2024. I'm still posting daily videos, so you're even gonna get a video on Christmas. Isn't that nice? And even on New Year's night, New Year's Day, daily videos, baby. So make sure you subscribe. Anyways, that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.